Just to notify you that this session is being recorded and the recording has started. Thank you all for attending today's session. We're excited to be extending our partnership with QBS beyond the UK to include additional territories, and we welcome a relationship with the QBS Partner Channel. A few words about eOne Solutions. We've been offering add-on products for Microsoft Dynamics ERP and CRM product suite for the last 18 years. We started with GP and CRM, and then we expanded into Nav and Business Central, and we'll be offering a connector for F&O by the end of this year. The company is headquartered in Fargo, North Dakota, but we have locations in Austin, Texas, Ontario, Canada, Sydney, Australia, Den Haag in the Netherlands, and Copenhagen, Denmark. The last two locations give exclusive support to our EMEA partner channel and customers. My name is Linda Johnson. I'm located in Den Haag or The Hague in the Netherlands to support you locally. I've been serving the Dynamics community for the past 15 years. And now I'm really pleased to introduce my colleague, Rod O'Connor, who is a Microsoft MVP. He's been working with the Dynamics ERP product suite for the past 20 years. Rod is located in Ontario, Canada, and he supports all the eOne territories. Rod, I turn it over to you now to begin our presentation. When do I need integration? When I have Microsoft's Power Platform.
Thank you very much, Linda, and hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I know it's pretty late in the day for you guys, or for many of you on the call, so I really appreciate you fitting us in. A little bit more about myself, just so you guys know. I did start my life as an accountant and have worked as an end user consultant, so developer, an IT manager for a little while. I did own a small Dynamics GP practice for a long time. And now most recently I've joined eOne Solutions. So I've worked in pretty much every side of this business at this point that can be possible. I've been working with Dynamics GP for almost 20 years, and then working with the Business Central product since the introduction of Madeira. So those are my, that's a little bit about my background from a technical perspective, if you will. Okay, so let's move on. So what's our talking points for today? What are we going to cover? In order to kind of talk about when do I need integration when we have Microsoft's Power Platform out there, we really need to understand what we mean by integration. So we're going to go through a few slides to kind of define what it is we're talking about. And then we're going to move on and we're going to review what is Microsoft's Power Platform today. Okay, so where does it stand? And what does it encompass? Next, we're going to talk about eOne. This is obviously an eOne presentation, so we do have to talk about some of our products. And we want to talk about how we can fit into that overall integration strategy. And then towards the end, we are going to open it up for questions. However, if you come up with questions along the way, please go ahead and throw the comments into the comment section, and both Linda and I, into the chat section. Over on your right-hand side, and Linda and I will try and keep track of that and answer as we go, or we'll make sure we answer it at the end. Okay, so let's dive right in. What do we mean by integration? Okay, so I've been working with business systems since about 1995. So there are a lot of people in the industry who've been doing this a lot longer than I have. But in my short time, I've watched solutions go from, we used to buy all of the best of breed modules. We'd get our accounts receivable over here, our check printing over there, and we'd merge them together. We'd integrate them. It was usually a very heavy code project, tended to be pretty big. Then we moved on to ERP solutions, and from there we actually grew into having ERP solutions with best of breed ISV solutions. Both Nav and GP follow this model really, really well. Okay, since then, we ended up with a hybrid. So we did end up with a hybrid of ERP and ISV, but then we also had different best of breed solutions that we would integrate into that kind of overall ERP strategy. So you would buy a reporting tool that wasn't necessarily integrated to your ERP, but you would bring it in. Whatever it was that you needed. Nowadays, what we're seeing is people are going to the internet and buying single function apps to fill a specific need within their process. And now we're starting to see everybody integrating those into their overall ERP strategy. Okay. But the word integration didn't mean the same thing in all of those cases. So integration to us has become kind of like that business intelligence became a while ago, where it just means so many things. And depending who you talk to, it could be something completely different that you're talking about using the same word. So what we tried to do is kind of break it down, and we said we feel that there's four main categories of integration. Okay. The first one is system extension. This is where we need to create or alter ways for users to enter or modify or review data. Okay, a good example of this would be adding fields to an existing window or creating a mobile data entry app. Okay, basically, if you take a look at that last point in the yellow square, it's designed to enable user interaction. We want our users to work with that data in some way. That's our system extension. Next, we talk about process automation. Now, or process, depending who's on the call. When we talk about process automation, we're usually talking, quite often when you talk integration, this is what's in your head, okay? This is where we're helping the system to do functions that don't really add value when a user does them, okay? So we're taking it away from the user and automating that step in some way. Great example would be, you've got a CRM account, you've got a salesperson who's the first person to talk to that account, they enter the data. It would be really redundant to have another person enter the customer record in the ERP. So we automate that process by creating the customer from the account. Okay. So basically, if you take a look at that last point in the blue square, we're designing that to replace user interaction. So extension enables, process automation replaces. Next, we talk about data migration. So this is where we're, normally it's a one-time thing. We're moving data from a legacy system to a new system, when we take all the users off of QuickBooks and put them into a better solution. Okay. In this case, what we're doing is we're taking the data from the old system, maybe massaging it a little bit, hopefully massaging it a lot, to put it into their new ERP, okay? Because hopefully the new ERP introduced a whole bunch of new processes, so we have to actually modify that data. What we're doing here is we're recreating historical user interaction. And don't get me wrong, I don't mean historical transactions. We'll talk about that later. What I'm talking about here is, your master records, your open data, your open transactions, all of those things that need to be converted. Okay, so that's what we mean by recreating user interaction. And the last one, I couldn't come up with a better name for it. Maybe we should run a little competition for that at some point, but this is really data sharing. What we mean by this is there's data that kind of lives in one system, and somebody who works in a different system needs to access it for some reason, okay? One of our most popular examples of this is where the salespeople who live in the CRM, they need to be able to know whether or not an invoice has been paid. They don't need all the payment information. They don't need check number or check date necessarily, but they need to know the invoice got paid. So what we need to be able to do is present that payment information associated with the invoice within CRM, even though it lives in and breathes in the ERP. Okay, so in this case, what we're saying is it's really designed to communicate previous end user interaction. Okay, so that's kind of our four major categories. Within those, there are probably subcategories, and we'll touch on that a little bit, but from our perspective, that's really what we're looking at for our four categories. All right, when you talk about the eOne Solutions products, just so you guys know, primarily we focus on the last three blocks, okay? So we thrive on process automation, data migration, and data sharing. You're gonna see hopefully see some pretty neat stuff today, okay? So with our definition of integration out of the way, let's talk about the Power Platform and what that is today. All right, so the Power Platform today is currently made up of three core products, okay? Power Apps, Flow, and Power BI. Power Apps is a simple low-code app creation tool. Basically, the apps are usually the ones I've seen as samples, are usually meant to cover a specific task, inventory transfers or stuff like that. Now, there are people who are doing more and more complex stuff with those things, and it's actually a pretty exciting technology if you follow some of the other MVPs. But for today, what I've been seeing is kind of very purpose-driven apps that you combine together to come up with an overall solution. All right. Flow is a visual workflow automation tool. For example, I saw one user that I was working with at one point. She created her own flow that would take all of the attachments from her email and drop them automatically into a SharePoint folder for her, so that she could go back and find them at any time. The workflow automation tool, it is visual, it's pretty simple, and there are some roadblocks, if you will, and we'll talk about them in a little bit. But overall, it's, again, a very exciting technology. And then Power BI has been around the longest. That is our visualization tool. It's really powerful for data analysis. It does a great job of aggregating data and analyzing it and then presenting it in a way that users can break down and understand really quick. One of my favorite examples in Power BI, whenever I teach users about Power BI, is I have a fishbowl. And basically within the fishbowl, each fish represents a customer, and the size of the fish represents how much they've purchased over the past N number of periods. It's a fun way to look at it. And it's very easy to grab that data and understand it. Okay, so it's a very visual tool. Underneath all of that is the common data model, the common data service, and a growing list of connectors and gateways. Okay, so the common data model is designed to help all these disparate systems that are out there understand each other. So basically what we're saying is a customer is always a customer, whether I'm accessing it through CRM, Business Central, LinkedIn, what have you. All of those systems understand each other when you're talking about customer, and then they can more readily share data. Okay. Now, if you go to Microsoft's website, the way they break that out is Power Apps allows users to act, Flow allows you to automate, and Power BI allows you to analyze the results. Okay, so kind of fits into our 4 blocks, but I wanted to break it down a little bit more. All right, so if we go back to our 4 categories, where do we see things fitting in? Obviously, Power Apps fits into the system extension. Power Apps, you can modify your CRM stuff. You can build apps from scratch. You can do an awful lot with it. You can extend your systems. Again, it's pretty cool, some of the stuff people are coming out with right now. We see Flow in the process automation category. So Flow, we really see it as a workflow automation tool. I wouldn't call it a robust, complex integration building tool. It has strengths, but there are maybe what I would call a few limitations as well. So, with those limitations and roadblocks, quite often you do end up having to get into building Azure functions or consuming other people's Azure functions. Not necessarily a terrible thing, it just means writing code. So you do have to understand how to do that. All right, next we have Flow and Power BI under what we're calling our data sharing. Okay, Flow obviously can move data from one spot to another. So in the case where you need to move customer data from one system to another, you could look at doing that. Okay, Power BI can show a graphical representation of the health of your process. So it can take a look at how many orders were processed. It can show you can have a graph up there that shows how many errors are there currently in the system. stuff like that. Okay. We don't see the Power Platform today as a data migration tool. Between licensing and the apps themselves, they don't really lend themselves well to a one-time use or a straight up data conversion use. So where does eOne Solutions fit in? To talk about that, we want to talk about two of our core products. We have a whole bunch of products on the market today, especially in the GP space, but these two products in particular are ones that we want to draw your attention to when we're talking about integration. So the first one is Smart Connect. Smart Connect is a no-code solution for building complex integrations. Now, when we say no code, code is still an option. I don't know how many techies are on the call today, but if you really, really want to build code, you can still do it. I've had to build some integrations where I'm writing .NET or SQL or what have you, and it's all there. It's available for you to do. I believe it's Java in the smartconnect.com. We deliver Smart Connect in two ways. The first one is smartconnect.com, our full SaaS solution. And then we also have Smart Connect on-premise, which requires you to install a server. Okay. If you have a system, if all of your systems are in the cloud, so you're on Business Central and you're on Dynamics 365 for sales, whatever they're calling it next week, you would go with smartconnect.com. It's your obvious choice. But if you do have needs that are on-premise, or if your customer just strictly prefers an on-premise solution, you can do that as well with our Smart Connect on-premise. These are the four pillars, or the four building blocks, if you will, of Smart Connect. Okay. Basically, what you should be able to do is draw a line from anything under data source down to anything under destination and back again. Okay. Basically, what we're saying is you should be able to move data from anywhere that it lives to anywhere that it lives and modify it along the way. As far as data sources go, these aren't all the data sources that are available, but they are some of the ones that are more commonly used. Okay. We do have a number of standard adapters, which are constantly growing, so that we can work with you to automatically give you things like error handling, which other solutions won't necessarily do. We also have a number of generic adapters, so SQL, OLEDB, and you might notice the REST adapter up there as well, or web services. Basically, if your solution, that your app that you're connecting to has an API, we should be able to read from it and write to it. Okay, and again, with no code. Triggers represents when we actually want the map to run. Okay, so we can run things in real time, we can run for changes only, we can run on a schedule or on demand. Okay, and again, we can have API calls if you want. We do track changes, or you can just run it manually. So every once in a while, I have to run this thing. The transform box represents a lot of what we can do, and you can honestly, you can do a ton of stuff with little to no code. Okay, we can do things like create custom fields, look up entity fields, or get next document numbers. We can translate data for you. For example, if country is a full word in CRM, but you want the two-letter representation of it for Business Central, we can do that. You can chain multiple maps together so that if you need to move data to multiple places, you can do that too. When we do our demos, quite often what we'll do is take data that's input from a web page and push it to both CRM and Business Central. Okay, and we can also deal with any data integration errors that might arise, which we talked about a little bit. So we can, send emails. We do have a window where users can look at the data errors and change the data to get it to process whatever you need, whatever your process requires. Lastly, destinations, just like data sources, if you have a place where data needs to be, we should be able to get it there. There are, just so you guys know, Linda's going to talk a little bit later about demos available to you for Smart Connect. You can get into the product, it goes much deeper. All right, PopDoc. So PopDoc is our no-code multi-platform user query solution. What does that mean? Basically, if users are using PopDoc, they can pull data from any data source that includes both on-premise and in the cloud, and they can define interactive reports that they can then embed in their system of choice. Okay, so these are the 5 kind of key features that I really like about PopDoc. First is actually the last thing that I mentioned in our description. You can embed, using these widgets, PopDoc reports into pretty much any system. We have a Business Central extension we can embed within CRM or Salesforce or NetSuite. So whatever system you're working in, you should be able to embed these reports, and they work the same way in all of those systems. So that one interface from any system, what that means is, you know, if I'm pulling data from Zendesk and associating it with data from billing, I can do that. I can put it in one report, and then wherever I embed that report, be it Zendesk or CRM, it's going to work the exact same way. The fact that it is a custom report, so even at runtime, users can change the report somewhat. So I can build a report that pulls data, combines data from CRM and Business Central, puts it in one spot, and I can define what it looks like by default. The users at runtime can then add or remove columns, they can pivot the report, they can add or remove filters, and then they can save that as a favorite for themselves so that now they've got a version of that same report that works for them. Okay, real-time data access is important for reports like this. So we're not throwing data out to a data lake, we're not throwing it out to a data mart. We are pulling it real time from the sources and running the ETL on the way in. Lastly, we can do scheduled exception reporting, so you can actually have it send you reports when something is going wrong. So we do have over 60 applications today that we connect to automatically. We're always taking recommendations for new ones, and we recently added a straight up REST adapter to it. So you will be able to connect to any data source using that REST connector. So how do we fit those into our 4 blocks? Okay, the 4 blocks were all important. First, we don't lay any claim to system extension. We don't have products in there. We don't feel that's our bailiwick. Process automation, we shine. So process automation, we can do really complex integrations, deal with really complex data sets, and do it in a quick way that moves your data from where it is to where it needs to be. We feel we have a lot to contribute when it comes to data migration. Smart Connect, using Smart Connect, your consultants can create repeatable conversions based on reusable maps, and they can move master records, open transactions from a legacy system to a new one. Okay, these are maps that you could take from one customer to another and easily, with just a few tweaks, usually at each new customer, easily repeat that process. Okay. For transactional history, you normally don't want to create that as a data conversion. We find this really expensive, but PopDoc does a great job of reading the data from your old legacy system and presenting it within your new system. So if you've moved users from QuickBooks to Business Central, for example, you could have that QuickBooks data presented through PopDoc report and embed that PopDoc report directly into Business Central. So we think that's a great solution for data presentation in that case. Okay, data sharing. Basically, we see the same 2 tools, but in the opposite direction. So with PopDoc, for example, your CRM users could see that payment information, have it directly on the account window, tied to the invoice that they're looking at. Okay. In cases where that data does have to physically flow across, for maybe there's a commission calculation that requires that information to be there, Smart Connect can do that again fairly easily. Now, because this is an eOne presentation, I don't want you to walk away feeling like eOne is saying, don't use the Power Platform, use eOne products. We don't think that at all. What we do think is there's an overall tool set that includes both the Power Platform and the eOne Solutions products. System extension, we've already talked about. Power Apps, great, great product. Under process automation, we see kind of two different things. When it comes to that kind of large scale, complex integration, we do feel Smart Connect shines. We can deal with so many complex issues, even simpler things like data handling or error handling. We can kind of do that out of the box. Not kind of, we can do that out of the box with no code. Okay. Flow, we see more as a process automation tool or a workflow automation tool. You know, getting approvals, sending emails, stuff like that, it's great for that, and it's very quick to set up. Okay, under data migration, we did talk about data migration a little bit. We don't see Power Apps as a player in that particular category, but we do see our products. We also see, for some of you on the call, One Click Factory, which is a service that will take legacy data or legacy system data and convert it into a new system. It's one-off, and I know Linda can speak more to that one than I can. Under data sharing, we actually feel all three products fit in really well. So Power BI for the overall aggregate health of your process, and for representing data graphically, it's wonderful. PopDoc and Smart Connect we already talked about. Now, one cool thing, PopDoc data sources, so those reports we build in PopDoc that are pulling data from multiple systems. So I may be pulling from Zendesk and CRM and Shopify, and I'm bringing all that data together. I can take that PopDoc report and use it as a data source within Power BI to make it big and pretty. Okay, so that is definitely something that you can do as far as your total solution goes. So our point here is, if we embrace the eOne products and come up with an overall integration strategy, you can empower your consultants and your customers to build and manage fully integrated multi-platform processes. And it's processes that are key, right? So you got to pick the right tool for making these processes work. But you can build these processes so that no code is required. You can move data from anywhere to anywhere. You can make these integrations as simple or complex as they need to be. You can make them very robust, repeatable, and reusable. Okay, the thing to remember about eOne Solutions is that we write the code so that you guys don't have to. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Linda.
Thank you, Rod. And as Rod mentioned, I would be happy to arrange a product demonstration for you, for each of you individually. Please contact me directly so I can show you Smart Connect and PopDoc in action, and you find my email address there. Also, in addition to the fall QB Share events, we will be attending Directions EMEA in Vienna in October. And we've got a speaking session there, but we're also holding two other events. Our two-day training boot camp is going to focus on Nav Business Central integration with D365 customer engagement. There will be also a PopDoc unit as part of that as well. And you can register your consultants on our event page, and you see the link up there. And we're also holding a partner breakfast so that you can meet Martin Olson, who is the CEO of eOne. He'll talk to you about our product roadmap and where the company is heading, and would really love to meet you all there. And again, you can sign up at our events page. So I'd like to open it up now to questions and answers at this time. Rod, are you going to try to unmute everybody? Sometimes the unmute doesn't work, so if it doesn't, feel free to type a question in the chat. But Rod and I are here to answer any questions that you might have about the presentation or about eOne Solutions.
All right, let me try to unmute everybody. Let's go to our attendees. All right, I think we've opened up the microphones.
Looks from my end like they're still muted, but
Yeah, mine too.
okay. So I'm sorry, I've had this problem with this before. So if you have any questions, please type them in the chat. We're here to answer any questions that you might have. And again, this session has been recorded, so if you're interested in getting a copy of the recording, just let me know. I'll be happy to send it on to you.
All right. Well, while we wait for any chats to come in, I do want to throw one final thought out there. Actually, not even one final thought. I just want to reiterate one of my previous final thoughts. We want you to make sure that when you approach a new project, a new integration project, that you're approaching it with a full tool belt. Okay. We feel that combining the Power Platform with the eOne products, that gives you that full tool belt along with the one-click solution as well. You should be able to go in and answer any customer's need or any customer's demand based on each of those products as long as you apply them correctly. And with that, I don't see any questions in the queue. Linda, do you have anything to add?
Werner is asking a question about the PowerPoint. He'd like a copy of the PowerPoint deck, and I'll be happy to send that out to you, Werner. No problem. You're welcome. Okay, any other questions? All right, I'm not seeing any. So Rod, thank you very much for your time and for that great presentation. And thank you everybody for attending today. And I will look forward to hearing from you all. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.